What's going on, guys? My name is Trevor. Welcome back to the channel. The Marvels hit theaters this past weekend, making it the 33rd MCU and adding to the individual MCU franchises inside the overall MCU franchise. And today we're ranking all 9 individual MCU franchises again inside the big overall MCU franchise. Let me know your ranking of each individual franchise down below in the comment section. What comes out on top? What comes down in at the bottom? In last place is the Marvels. You have Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, a series, and you have now the Marvels. And honestly, for me, none of these really hit. Captain Marvel is one of my bottom tier MCU movies overall. I find the movie very dull, very bland. Carol Danvers is not very likable throughout that movie. I think every movie after Captain Marvel, she becomes more likable, but for us getting introduced to this character, I thought I would enjoy her a lot more in the first Captain Marvel movie. The best part about this movie is young Nick Fury and Goose, but it's not a young Nick Fury and Goose movie, it's a Captain Marvel movie. Then the Miss Marvel series, I never finished it. I know lots of people actually really enjoyed this one. I watched like 3 episodes, and it was fine. I didn't absolutely love it. I really do love Kamala. She's a very, very funny character, and she's just super sweet and bubbly, and that's what I really love about her. And then in the Marvels, Miss Marvel was really the only thing I enjoyed throughout this movie. Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson seemed like he was really there just for a paycheck. Captain Marvel is more likable in this one, but she has so many different things happening in this movie that I just kind of couldn't really get attached to her. And then you have Monica Rambeau, who's in there as well from the sequel to WandaVision, and she's just not that likable in this movie, and overall it just felt kind of like a pointless movie in my opinion, so the Marvels franchise comes in last. At number 8 is Thor. The first Thor, I enjoy the world building they give us, getting introduced to Loki, and you can really see his vengeance and how he will turn evil against his brother, because basically he's been in his brother's shadow his whole life. Thor: The Dark World, I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I don't remember hating it all that much, but I don't remember liking it all that much either. Thor Ragnarok, easily the best movie throughout the Thor franchise. It's very funny. Taika Waititi's flares all over this film. And Thor: Love and Thunder is one of my least favorite movies of all time. So the Thor franchise overall, it's one of the ones that's kind of bizarre, has 4 movies. It's one of the, I think this and Avengers, only the 2 that have 4 movies inside the individual MCU franchises. It's kind of bizarre that Thor got 4 before a lot of other characters and heroes, so it comes in at number 8. At number 7 is AntMan. The first AntMan is a fun, lower stakes MCU movie about a criminal who becomes a superhero. That's a very interesting take, and I really enjoy watching that. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a bottom tier MCU movie for me. One, I don't go back and rewatch all that much, but Scott Lang's little bubbliness really carries this movie along. Ghost, not a great villain, and the post-credit scene, probably the best part about this movie. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which came out earlier this year, I had a fun time with. It's like a middle-of-the-road MCU movie, like a top 20, but just barely a top 20 MCU movie. Getting introduced to Kang, really, not just the Loki series, but really get a whole backstory and everything about this character probably is the best part. But the Ant-Man franchise as a whole, I will give it does have fun, and that is all solely due to Paul Rudd. These movies are a little bit cheesy, again, kind of bizarre that this character, and again, it's kind of bizarre that this character has a trilogy, because Ant-Man's always been just that side hero to me. He's never been that main hero, so I'm much more positive on this franchise than the previous 2 from this point up, so again, more and more positive. At number 6 is Doctor Strange. Only have 2 movies in this one, and I would like to see a third Doctor Strange very soon. The first Doctor Strange is a very solid origin story. I do not love the first Doctor Strange. I definitely think it has pacing issues and quite a bit of problems. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. But the origin story about this, seeing Doctor Strange, who's this cocky neurosurgeon, just get completely humbled out and have to go on a soul-searching journey, makes it for a damn good origin story. And Stephen Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, is such a likable character, even though he's very cocky and suave and kind of a douchebag, but you still find a way to like him. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I think, is one of the more underrated MCU sequels throughout the entirety of the MCU. It's a lot of fun. Sam Raimi's direction is great. You get introduced to America Chavez, Zoe Gomez. I think she's a great added character. Wanda is a Scarlet Witch, truly becomes that villain, the Scarlet Witch, one of the best MCU villains in my opinion. And seeing Benedict Cumberbatch, again, kind of who's almost one of the leaders of the Avengers now, because a lot of the Avengers have died off or gone their ways. So Doctor Strange seems like one of the more powerful, one of the more characters who is kind of in charge now. So this seems a little bit more important because he has authority throughout this movie, and I like what Sam Raimi did with it. It's fun, it's a little bit scary, and I just want to see a third one with Sam Raimi directing it. At number 5 is Iron Man. Honestly, a very underrated trilogy. The first Iron Man is one of the best, if not the best, origin story in the MCU. Iron Man 2, I think, gets way too much hate. And Iron Man 3, while it is messy and all over the place and has things in the movie that make absolutely no sense, like taking away Tony Stark's powers, giving Pepper Pot powers, the Mandarin not being real, I understand that the Iron Man 3 is like a movie that just doesn't make all that much sense, and you have every right to hate it. But for me, I just kind of find it as a guilty pleasure. Don't get me wrong, it's like in a B, C tier movie, but I can go and watch it and still have a good time with it. And Iron Man 2, I can still watch it and have a good time with just because of Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. But when you talk about the first Iron Man, the one that started off the entirety of the MCU, Iron Man is absolutely perfect in every way in terms of an origin story, in terms of a superhero story, because it's such lower stakes. It's about this billionaire playboy philanthropist who's cocky as all hell. He's out there just really kind of having fun, gets humbled out completely, makes a friend, loses a friend, makes this suit, and literally when his back's against the wall, he has one option, is to go straight. And he does. And it's inspiring in a way, and it makes it for a very fun movie. First, cheeseburgers. At number 4 is Captain America. The only reason this one is so low is because of Captain America, the First Avenger. One of my least favorite MCU movies. I haven't seen it since theaters. I needed to give it a rewatch. I couldn't even really add anything to it that I've already said 1,000 times. I just didn't like Red Skull. I didn't like fast forwarding through the World War we're in. I just didn't love this movie like I really probably should. Captain America the Winter Soldier, probably the best sequel inside the MCU. It is a spy espionage movie. Bucky returns. You see how much that affects Steve Rogers and Captain America. You have such good direction from the Russo brothers. Their first really introduction inside the MCU, and they came to play. They really, really did. It's a movie that's a little bit more of a slower burn. I don't think the Winter Soldier shows up to about 40-45 minutes in, and he's one of the most menacing villains throughout the entirety of this franchise. And Steve Rogers, you see his conflict because he loves his friends so much. He's with them till the end of the line. It's emotional, and it's badass. Then you have Captain America Civil War. I rewatch this one so often. It is an S-tier MCU movie for me. It's basically an Avengers spin-off, an Avengers movie, but all these characters on screen and getting introduced to characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Captain America just kind of having a conflict with either saving his friend Bucky or being with his friends and family in the Avengers. And there's always a side pick. Are you Team Tony or are you Team Cap? Safest hands are still our own anymore. I'm pretty much Team Captain America, because I say that line all the time. Safest hands are still our own. Action is absolutely great. The Russo brothers have another fantastic entry inside the MCU, and they can show that they can really handle a big group of characters, and I never saw this in theaters, and I'm really kicking myself. At number 3 is Spider-Man. Spider-Man Homecoming is criminally underrated. One of my favorite Spider-Man movies, and superhero movies of all time for that matter. I absolutely love it. Vulture, one of the best villains in comic book history. And that freaking plot twist, I talk about it all the time, but that plot twist is absolutely perfect. I never saw it come on my jaw, literally dropped to the floor. I just love Tom Holland and how just kind of lower stakes and subtle this movie is. He's in Tony Stark's shadow, but I like that Tony Stark is there as a mentor for Peter throughout this movie. It's a really enjoyable movie for me. Far From Home is a more bottom tier MCU movie for me. I just never loved Spider-Man Far From Home. I just never liked Far From Home. I saw it in theaters, didn't like it. Every time I try to rewatch it, I still don't really like it. I don't like Mysterio as a villain. But when you lead to Spider-Man No Way Home, this movie is everything more you Spider-Man fan can want. Tobey and Andrew returning as Spider-Man. 3 Spider-Man on screen. All the villains from the previous Spider-Man movies. It is a Spider-Verse multiverse movie. It's absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely perfect. At number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't have a problem with any 3 of these movies, and I think the third one that came out earlier this year is the best in this little trilogy. The first Guardians of the Galaxy, no one thought it was going to work. Everyone's like, a Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Are you insane, bruh? And it works. James Gunn has his flair written all over this movie, and it feels like a committee didn't make this movie like a lot of the MCU movies feel like. It feels like James Gunn got to make the movie he really wanted to make, and he does a damn good job with that. The soundtrack's absolutely fantastic. You have a talking tree and a talking raccoon or a trash panda, and it just works on every single level. And at the end, when they're all holding like each other on for the Power Stone, you're like, it's just inspiring. It hits you in the feels. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Is it incredibly silly? 100,000%. It is a little too silly at times. But losing Yondu is an emotional punch. Baby Groot is one of the best versions of Groot. Ego is a very underrated villain. And overall, this movie does have slower beats, but it still has James Gunn flair, and it's still a very fun time with the movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Don't get me wrong, it's sad. It's really, really sad. But to see the ultimate payoff of Rocket's story and how much loss he had to go through to be able to have this much love in his heart, Rocket just became one of, if not the best member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's one of the best characters inside the MCU for that matter. It's such an emotional movie, and by the end, you'll have you smiling and crying tears of joy. But at number 1 is the Avengers. All 4 of these movies are absolutely amazing in their own right. The first Avengers, one of the big first team-up superhero movies we've ever got to see, and it's the first movie I ever saw in 3 times in theaters. This is one of my top 3 favorite MCU movies in general, and the Battle of New York with Loki as a villain is just perfect. That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. Then you come to Age of Ultron. Definitely a little bit more lower stakes, but it definitely leads into a lot of the more of the MCU, and that's what I feel like a lot of people hate on this movie, but like this leads perfectly into Civil War because the Sokovia Accords. I mean, that is a big part of the Ultron movie. That's a big part of Age of Ultron that leads into the future of the MCU and the Avengers breaking up. So Avengers Age of Ultron has a lot of weight to it. And Ultron is a damn good villain. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch. It's perfect. And getting in more backstory on Hawkeye, I love it. I love that. Avengers Infinity War, my favorite movie inside the MCU, one of my favorite movies of all time for that matter. You have the best villain in cinematic history, in my opinion, in Thanos, and this movie overall is just, it's filled with just so much good action and so many great hero entrances from Captain America to Thor landing in Wakanda. It's action-packed, and the heroes lose. That's something we never see in cinema, really ever. Then Avengers Endgame, a slower burn of a comic book movie, but the whole time travel aspects make it for such a fun time. And the ending, that last hour is absolutely perfect. Stephen Strange holds up his finger one. Tony Stark knows what he has to do. It's epic and perfect in every single way. All the characters come back, and it's everything more than you wanted. Cap, can you read me? Cap Sam. On your left. The Avengers is my favorite franchise inside the overall MCU franchise. Let me know your ranking of all 9 MCU franchises down below in the comment section. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching and for being here. And I'll see you in the next one.